Okay, we'll call our meeting to order and staff will let us know when we're live. Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. I'm going to start by acknowledging that we're in Mi'kma'ki in the district of Sipekne'katik, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. We'll now have a moment of silent contemplation. Okay, next, we'll set the date and time of the next council meetings. July 15th, 2025, regular meeting of council for policy and in camera, and July 23rd, 2025, regular meeting of council. I think moved by Councillor Musa, seconded by Councillor Dixon. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. The approval of or amendments to the agenda. Councillors, we do have a request from Councillor Rhino, who is going to be late due to attending grade 6 graduation this evening. And he has asked if we will hold item 42 in correspondence for decision until such time as he gets back, is able to be here. What is your wish, councillors? Okay, agreed. So we won't need a motion for that. We will make that happen. Are there any further amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I declare the agenda approved as amended. The regular minutes of the regular meeting of council for policy and in camera, May the 13th, 2025, and the regular meeting of council, May 21st, 2025. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I declare the minutes approved. We'll now move into correspondence for information. Councillors, this has been in front of you, well, depending on the date it came in, for some time. Is there, Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just looking at item 63 in our What's New documents. It's the letter from Corridor Community Options Society.
That's in information for decision.
That's in the next.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Warden. A question for you about item 61, and this is a letter from Sandra McKenzie, and it is on. It deals with the Regional Emergency Management Organization, or REMO, and I'm just looking, I guess, from staff, possibly from staff, for a bit of an update, a status update on where are we with REMO. Are we collaborating yet with neighboring municipalities? I know this is emerging, but can we just get a bit of an update on that, please?
CAO.
Thank you, Madam Warden. We're actually meeting on that tomorrow to prepare a position for council to give some consideration to how we fit in the provincial emergency management. As you know, we don't belong to a REMO now. This grant funding notice came out, I would say probably a little bit ahead of where we're at and where most folks are at in the province. So once we sort of look at all the pros and cons and where we think the recommendation should land for council, we'll be in touch with councillors, and I'm not sure what the timeline is for how this lines up with July's meeting or not, but we'll have some of those preliminary conversations with the province. our EMC coordinator is already having some of those conversations and attending some of the engagement sessions they're having. And there is a group of 19 CAOs who are representing municipalities across the board on sort of making sure that the standards and whatnot are engaged on. So we're sort of putting our faith in those folks to represent municipalities. There's a good group of CAOs that are at that table. So as far as East Hants, we will know more in the coming days, and then we'll be back making some recommendations.
Perfect. And I know a lot of this is late breaking. In the correspondence, there's mention of a preferable August 1st deadline for some submission of forms, and either there or in another spot, there is information on grant application, and I kind of read the August one was kind of almost like a suggested early deadline, and I guess my follow-up question is, are we about as well off as any other municipality in terms of, I'm presuming we want to maximize utilization of this new tool. Do you see a risk that we could, miss an important deadline, or are we pretty much on track at this point?
Through you, Madam Warden. Personally, I think the grant program is probably a little premature for a lot of municipalities. We don't even know where we're going to be. And with an August deadline, these folks are on sort of a quick to the post. They just want to get this rolled out, and they're doing it fairly quickly. But there's a lot of things that are unknown, and the dollar values for these grants are really quite small given the amount of money we could spend on emergency management.
Yeah.
So might we miss a funding opportunity? We might, but that's, the dollar values are not insignificant, but they're not what I was hoping they were going to be, given the standards and whatnot that I think are going to come with that dollar value attached.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Thanks.
Just before I move on, I neglected earlier to welcome members of the public that are in the gallery this evening. We're not used to having a lot of people in the gallery, but I just want to say welcome to everyone. Next on is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Item number 65. Would it be prudent for us to send a letter of support to the municipality of Digby, to the NSFM, and CC who they are sending it to for road safety and funding? Would that add any more weight, do you think?
Yeah, that's completely, we could certainly do that when it comes to NSFM. The way that it works now, it'll probably end up at a committee somewhere before it goes anywhere, but we could certainly send a letter in support of Digby.
I'd make a motion that we send a letter of support to municipality of Digby and
Second that.
CC the province and the MLAs.
Okay, moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Dixon, and I would just make note, I think Councillor Tingley maybe sits on that committee. Is that correct? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we send a letter of support for the municipality of Digby's letter to NSFM. Any discussion on the motion? I have Councillor Perry and Councillor Dixon on deck, but is it to the motion or? No. So seeing no one speaking to the motion, we will go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Okay, next on, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'm looking at number 74, the letter from Becky Durham, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, with the policing review and results. Are we going to receive an update report at the next Police Advisory Committee on the results of this and the impacts to our municipality?
It's hot off the press today. We don't know. I was on a Teams call prior to the press release going out today. There's not a lot of detailed information there as yet. There are the 6 broad principles, but the meat's not there yet, I guess, so to speak, is exactly what the new billing process they're envisioning is going to be and things like that. But I think as we work through it, we could certainly, I don't know if the RCMP will have anything, but at a future executive meeting, we could certainly go over that.
Yeah,
policing
I think it would be pertinent for us to dig into and understand what's missing and what we need. So moving forward, we can have the best information to make decisions, because as you said, it is very broad and there's not a lot of meat on that bone. But it definitely will have an impact on us in the future.
Adam has asked to weigh in on that a bit. I'll get in. No?
Mike's closer to the mouth.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, I guess not being heard very well. Yeah, no, I think it is going to have a big impact on us and many other municipalities. So I think it's something that we need to track and not just look at for information and have it go away.
CAO?
Through you, Madam Warden. So as the warden mentioned, it was just released. We had a briefing on it half an hour before noon today, and it was released this afternoon. The next step is some meetings with municipalities over the summer is what they're hoping to do. So Nova Scotia or East Hants would be engaged in those meetings at some point. I think if we try to dig in now, I think there will be more information that comes through the work of the NSFM policy analyst has been neck deep in this study and this review. And I think as they roll out more information around it and what it actually looks like, I think that's where our time and energy is best spent is if we tried to do that at the staff level here, we have no more information than the
No,
general
it
public
just-
has at this point.
Just want to make sure it's being tracked and
Yeah.
is on the radar, because
There are
a lot of
supposed-
times I don't have a lot of faith in NSFM and in what they agree with going forward and how it affects us. So I just
Well,
want to make
Minister
sure.
Druin does intend to meet with individual councils
Good.
over the summer.
Nope, that satisfies me. Thank you.
Councillor Dixon?
Thank you. Through the chair, first question I have is the petition for Bakery Lane that did not get enough support. They cannot return back for another request for 5 years or 3 years? 3 years? Okay, thank you. And my second comment here, I'd like to make Councilor Merriam mention about the funding that expires at the end of August. Reading that today, would that be something that we'd be interested in applying, like to get a drone or something for the municipality for EMO to use? Would that fall under that category, or could it?
Through you, Madam Warden, I believe there were 2 grants that got sent out by email today. The one that Councillor Marion was talking about is around money available if you form a REMO with somebody.
Okay.
There is another emergency grant fund that you could use for something like that. In the past, we've used it to apply for radios for our EMO program, satellite, that type of thing. So
Because we have a member on staff we hired recently, EMO, that is professional in that and would be some tool that maybe he could use for East End. So I'll just throw that out for thought.
yeah, we can add that to our meeting tomorrow. if
Okay,
that's
thank
okay.
you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other items under correspondence for information that anyone wants to draw particular attention to? Seeing none, we'll move to correspondence for decision. And we'll start and work from the top down. The municipality has received an unsolicited offer to purchase a municipally owned property, Lot 09-01, PID 453-79864 on Lacey Ann Avenue in Enfield. Staff recommend that council request a staff report to come forward in July for review. There were some confidential details posted that councilors would have had an idea or an opportunity to see before we get into contractual or legal discussions. So now we'd be looking for a motion for a staff report at this time. Councilor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Re-item 73, I would like to request that staff prepare a report on this topic and that it be available and presented for the July meeting.
That's a motion you're making.
And I'd like to make that motion. I'm sorry. Thank you.
We have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Tingley. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next item, we have a letter from the Corridor Community Options Society requesting consideration be given to installing a new crosswalk at 201 Park Road, Elmsdale, to support people who are considered to be living with intellectual and/or physical disabilities in the community. And the letter is before you, counselors. Counselor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So I would, at this point, what would we be looking for? What would be the next stage for staff to,
Well, is Park Road provincial or municipal? It's ours, at that end. Part of it isn't ours, but that part is.
The majority of Park Road is ours.
okay, so we would be looking to staff to bring us back a report on the feasibility of this, or? Okay, so I would like to make a motion that staff bring a report back with the details, the cost, and the feasibility on having a crosswalk from the new Corridor Community Options facility to the crosswalk on the opposite side.
Seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Next item. A request from the Uniac Legion to retain the unused portion of funds awarded for flagpoles for new interpretive panels containing the history of the old cenotaph and other drawings portraying the community. $3,595.56 remains from the original $15,000 grant. And I'm told that Alana is prepared to speak to this.
Thank you, through Madam Warden. So we had a previous motion of council from earlier this year to award the group $15,000 for 2 additional flagpoles, one to fly the municipal flag, the other to fly the Grand Council. They went forward with that project and it did come under budget as noted. So they are requesting to retain the $3,500 to put towards interpretive panels at the site. And that those funds did come from the additional Mount Uniac Recreation Rate Fund.
So these funds are paid by an area rate in Mount Uniac. Okay. Counselor Perry.
Yeah, I'll move that we allow the Legion to keep these funds. If we didn't let them keep them, there'd just probably be a DRF grant application coming in the fall or next year to pay for the same thing. So this way here, it's out of the Mount Uniac funds. So it's going to be a benefit for the community. It'll allow the site to start to take shape, especially leading into next year when they hope the work on the Memorial Park will be completed. So I'll move that council allows the Uniac Legion to retain the $3,595.56 to move towards creating panels designed for display.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Next item. Okay, next item would be the request from Denise Thompson, the owner of Shore Girl Adventures. This is the item that we are holding until later in the agenda to allow Councillor Rhino to join us. as this is related to his area. So at this time, we'll move on to the Conflict of Interest Act session. As part of a new counselor orientation, Jason Hahn, the municipal advisor, is available to provide training on July 15th. We would adjust the executive committee meeting schedule, which is not preferred, or the evening of July 17th, which is the executive extension night. So council is asked to select either of these dates or suggest alternatives or postpone until September. So what is your wish? Now, don't speak at once, everybody. Somebody push your button and give us a suggestion. Councilor McPhee, or Deputy Warden McPhee, sorry.
Yes, I'm fine if we just go with the council extension on July 17th.
Committee extension.
Or executive committee extension.
Councilor Merriam.
Thanks, Madam Warden, and I would agree with that for Thursday night. Thank you.
Quickly looking at my calendar here. Yeah. Councilor Perry.
I would request that we make that a 7 o'clock start, not 6:30 as most of the dates are posted for extensions, just to allow those to travel to make it here for the start time.
Noted. All right, so could we have a motion that we would, Councilor Merriam?
Yes, for the, I'd like to make a motion that for the conflict of interest session, that we schedule it for 7 o'clock on July 17th, the extension night.
We have a seconded by Councilor Mitchell. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Okay, next item. A request to make a presentation to council regarding the Tinsmith Museum from Matt Morash, a Shubenacadie resident. And who's taking this one? Alana?
Thank you, through you, Madam Warden. I think this is a really good opportunity for our Community Development Coordinator to work with the East Hants Museum Society on bylaws and governance. So I can appreciate the resident concerns. I don't necessarily think a presentation is required at this time. They're not a member of the board. But I think the Community Development Coordinator, like I said, could work with the group on their bylaws and governance, and through that, council could tie that to some of the operational and staffing grants that we do provide the Tinsmith annually, and then also to tie some reporting to that as well. So we do appreciate everything that the group does in their operations of the museum on our behalf. So that's what I would suggest if council wanted to discuss that particular option, but I think it would be a good collaborative effort to move forward in that manner.
Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Warden. Yes, I had spoken with Mr. Morash and his wife about that, and they're certainly interested in becoming involved in the Tinsmith Museum, and I think this would be a good direction to go. I encourage everybody to, if you haven't read his proposed presentation, might be good to read it just to see what his point of view is. Having said that, I'll make the following motion. Move that council direct staff to engage with the East Hants Museum Society, Tinsmith Shop Museum, to provide support related to bylaws and governance, with this engagement being linked to the provision of operating and staffing grants moving forward, and that any future grants provided to the society be subject to annual year-end reporting requirements.
Seconded by Councilor Tingley. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And Counselor Rhino is not voting because he came in partway through the discussion, so the motion is passed unanimously. And someone will correspond with Mr. Morash and let him know how we're proceeding. All right, next item. Now, we'll do the next one and then we'll go back to 42 since Counselor Rhino has been able to join us. So the follow-up information regarding the request from the Shubenacadie Canal Commission for East Hants to appoint a member to their board has been provided, and previous motion C25(177) was tabled until additional information was available. So, who's doing this one? Looks like it's Alana.
Thank you, through you, Madam Warden. So this initially stems from a letter from the chair of the Shubenacadie Canal Commission to have an additional East Hants representative. There was a motion to put out sort of a call to the public to see if there was interest in that manner. And then after reviewing the bylaws and understanding that it does require 2 persons from East Hants to be part of it, and we know that they do have 1 individual that's already appointed, the option was to table the motion. From that, we did find out about the time commitment. So there's a break in the summer, but there's meetings every second month. They're about an hour to an hour and a half. It is held at the Fairbanks Center, which is in Shuby Park in Dartmouth. And then there's also some committees that an individual can be part of. So, you know, the time commitment is bi-monthly, probably a couple hours. And then again, if there's any sort of additional committees. So certainly up for council to discuss and determine how they want to move forward.
So we do have a tabled motion. The tabled motion being that we would direct staff to use municipal social media to gauge interest from the public regarding appointing a representative to the Canal Commission. We can lift that motion from the table if we wish, or perhaps having the further information, there might be members of council who would be interested in being a member as well. So, Councillor Merriam.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. I'm going to make a motion that we untable the motion.
Move to lift it from the table. Do we have a seconder?
No, second.
Seconded by the Deputy Warden. Non-debatable. We'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. So the motion has been lifted from the table, so that motion is on the floor, C25-177. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Perry.
Looking at the makeup of the commission, how it was designed to have 2 persons, a resident and 1 appointed by council. We already have a resident on there, so would we not be just duplicating, trying to find another resident? That we already have 1 person on this?
Well, it did not prescribe that it had to be a member of council. They wanted 2 members from the community, 1 appointed by the governor and council and 1 appointed by the municipality. I guess the thought being maybe they'd be drawing from different pools of people. I don't know.
Okay, no, it was just my thought that we might be duplicating effort here. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion, which is to direct staff to advertise for public interest? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Oh, sorry, CAO had asked to speak. My apologies, I didn't see that.
Madam Warden, just looking at the legislation, there seems to be a gap in the motion for such a term of office as council may determine. I'm not sure if we have that outlined anywhere, but if you wanted to say for a 2-year term or.
Well, let's deal with the motion that's on the floor, and then I'll be looking for a motion to establish a term for when staff go out to the public. Unless someone wants to move an amendment to that motion. Seeing no one, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Now, I'd be looking for a motion to direct staff as part of that advertising to set a term, whatever council might. So someone take a stab at it, and we'll see where it goes. We need someone to move a motion to set a term limit. Counselor Merriam.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion, and it's C 25-177, and the motion would be when this goes out to public through social media, that it would specify whichever term makes sense due to
Pick
the
one.
a 2-year term.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by the deputy warden. Any discussion on the motion? We'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. We'll now go back to item 42, a request from Denise Thompson, the owner of Shore Girl Adventure, seeking permission to access Burncoat Head Park for the purpose of offering guided nature walks and ocean floor tours after hours. And I believe Alana is taking this one. Oh, my apologies to the public. We've reached the hour of our scheduled public hearing, which is one thing we have to adhere to on our agendas, our public hearing times. So we will come back to this item following the public hearings. Okay. The first public hearing this evening is around the Heritage Building registration of the former United Church in Kennecott. Councilors, this evening we have a hearing to consider the registration of a municipal heritage property. The purpose of this hearing is for council to hear input from the property owner prior to making a decision on the request. Tonight, council may approve, reject, or defer its decision on the request to a later date. Council approval is required for the registration to proceed. I will now ask the municipal clerk to outline when the notice was sent to the property owner.
Madam Warden, a notice of recommendation for registration as a municipal heritage property was served upon the owner of the property more than 30 days prior to this hearing. The notice gave the date, time, and how they can participate in the hearing. The hearing is being streamed live through the municipal website and YouTube channel.
Councilors, on the hearing scheduled this evening is a request by the Kennecott Cemetery Society to register the former church in Kennecott as a municipal heritage property. I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his report. Councilor Mitchell.
Planning Advisory Committee, acting as the Heritage Advisory Committee, has considered the request on behalf of Municipal Council. The committee has reviewed the staff report, completed their evaluation, and will make a recommendation to Council during this hearing. Madam Warden, through you, I would now ask staff to present their final report on the request.
Okay. I'll hear John.
Thank you, Warden. Yes, as mentioned, we received an application from the Kennecott Cemetery Society to have the church at 4295 Highway 354 in Kennecott registered as a municipal heritage building. The building is no longer a place of worship, and based on the assessment of the property, which was appended to the staff report, staff are recommending that the building be added to the Registry of Heritage Properties. The building received a score of 64 out of a possible 130, and the threshold to be considered a heritage property is 50, so it met that test. The date of construction is known to be 1890, and the building is in very good condition, as you can see in the photo there. There are obviously some minor modification over the years, and the building has vinyl siding, which obviously wouldn't have been a traditional material. The location and original building design remain intact. Window openings have not been altered, and the building is located on an elevated position and serves as a landmark within the community. And the owner, the Cemetery Society, is aware of the restrictions and obligations of heritage property ownership, which includes deregistration requirements and issues, for example, around insurance. So just a couple more photos, and that's a staff presentation. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you, John. Does any member of council have any questions for staff? Seeing none, does a representative from the Kennecott Cemetery Society have anything they would like to say regarding the registration? I'm taking that as a no. Okay. Does any member of staff have any final comments?
No.
I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his committee's recommendation.
Planning Advisory Committee, as Heritage Advisory Committee, recommends that council approve the registration of 4295 Highway 354 Kennecott as a municipal heritage property. As chair of PAC, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Hibb. Are there any final questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden, but I do believe that that is not Highway 354 that road is on. So I'm just wondering if we should not get this right in the motion.
Just bear with me, John.
Through you, Madam Warden, that the information we have is that is the civic address for that property. There is a laneway that goes up to it, and it may be
No, but
named.
I believe Councillor Rhino is right. I think that's the 236.
It's the 236,
Okay.
354
Stand
runs
corrected.
out to the shore.
Okay.
So could we have that reflected in the motion?
Do we need to amend this motion to get the correct address? Perhaps, Councillor Rhino, you could make that a motion to amend the address to reflect Highway 236?
I would move that we amend the motion to change the highway number to Route 236 with the previous, from the previous motion, from 354.
We have a second. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll vote on that amendment, which I'm hoping is in order because we're in a public hearing. We'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. So back to the motion on the registration of the former church as a heritage property. Any further questions from council? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Oh, no, I did not. It's not on my script, so I missed it. There are none wishing to comment on the YouTube channel. Thank you. I'm sure Julianne would have waved at me if there were. All right, we'll go to the vote. I asked for, I guess, No, I did not. We're not off to a good start tonight, folks. Does any member of the public have any comments or questions?
Through you, Madam Warden, with a heritage registration, there's no requirement to invite the public. It's really for the owner to speak to council before you make a registration.
I knew it wasn't on my paper. All right, we will now go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. So the next public item on the public hearing agenda tonight is the proposal to increase the density in the village core zones. Councilors, this evening we have one item on the public hearing agenda. The purpose of this hearing is for council to hear input from the public prior to making a decision on the proposal. To the members of public who have chosen to participate this evening, welcome. Please note that council's procedural policy requires that you not cheer, boo, clap, or otherwise disrupt this hearing. Everyone that wishes will have an opportunity to be heard. Tonight, council may approve, reject, or defer its decision to a later date. Council approval is required for the proposal to proceed. I will now ask the municipal clerk to outline when the public hearing advertisements were published.
Madam Warden, a public hearing notice appeared in the June 11th, 2025 and June 18th, 2025 editions of the Chronicle Herald and was posted on the East Hants website. The notices described the proposal, gave the date and time of the public hearing, and indicated that staff reports were available to the public.
Councilors, the public hearing item this evening is for a proposal to increase the density in the village core zone to comply with the Housing Accelerator Fund agreement. I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his report. Councilor Mitchell.
Planning Advisory Committee has considered the proposal on behalf of Municipal Council. The committee has reviewed staff reports, completed their evaluation, and will make a recommendation to council during this hearing. Madam Warden, through you, I would now ask staff to present their final report on the proposal.
Over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Madam Warden. East Hants entered the Housing Accelerator Fund agreement with CMHC on February 23, 2024 for $5.8 million. East Hants must fulfill 9 initiatives to receive all of the funding. Initiative 9 requires that East Hants increase the density from a maximum of 12 dwelling units permitted as of right to a maximum of 16 dwelling units as of right through site plan approval in the Village Core VC zone. In order to complete the initiative, amendments to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw are required. Amendments will impact all Village Core zones. The purpose of the Village Core designation and zone is to allow for a diverse mixture of retail, service, business, and residential uses in an environment serving both pedestrian and vehicle needs within an aesthetically pleasing, socially interactive streetscape serving both a local and a community-wide population. Under the land use bylaw, property owners are currently permitted to construct a maximum of 12 dwelling units as of right through site plan approval. A property owner also has the option to apply for a development agreement for multiple unit uses in excess of 12 dwelling units up to a maximum of 20 dwelling units per 0.5 hectares in the Village Core zone. To keep the Village Core zone a mixed-use zone, staff recommend that the HAF requirement of permitting 16 dwelling units as of right to be combined with a commercial component. Commercial development is essential for the continued development of healthy village cores where residents can walk to local commercial uses. It is equally important to have land available for continued development of commercial business that support the community. Planning and economic and business development staff have discussed the dwelling unit increase and recommend that ensuring a minimum of 75% of the ground floor street frontage be used for commercial uses for buildings between 13 and 16 dwelling units. The requirement will preserve the streetscape and commercial presence, but will allow a developer to construct dwelling units on the ground floor where there is no street frontage. Commercial requirements are not proposed to be applicable to existing flag lots. In addition to allowing for an increase to the number of dwelling units, both the maximum gross floor area and the maximum building height will have to increase to enable an increase in the unit numbers. At their May 2025 meeting, Council gave first reading to amendments which included a maximum gross floor area of 1,888 square meters. The purpose of increasing the gross floor area is to enable the development of 16 two-bedroom apartments and a commercial floor area on the ground floor. We also have to account for utility and hallway space. Developers who attended the public information meeting that was held in April indicated that the gross floor area needed to be large enough to accommodate the apartments, commercial area corridors, and utility areas. Proposed amendments. It was also indicated that two-bedroom units should be approximately 1,000 square feet in area to accommodate market demand. To accommodate the additional dwelling units, staff recommend permitting a maximum of 3 stories without requiring the third story to be constructed into the roof line. To assist council in visualizing the mass of the building constructed to the maximum gross floor area under our current regulations and the proposed amendments, staff have provided an illustration showing the size of the buildings. So, under our current regulations, we permit a gross floor area of 835 square meters. So this box shows the 835 square meters, and that's a massing. And an equivalent building would be the one located in Elmsdale at 674 Highway 2. So that's an equivalent massing. As an example of the 1,888 square meters is below this building here. Currently, there are no buildings in the village cores because we don't allow for such a large building currently. However, the footprint would be similar to where we have 1135 Highway 2 in Lance, where Lily Pond and the restaurant is located. So it would be equivalent to the size of this building for a footprint. Instead of a story and a half, though, as this building is, it would be 3 stories. So the changes being proposed are the following. So the height to allow for a full 3 stories, transparency requirement reduction on the second and third stories, commercial component not requiring on the existing flag lots, no accommodations to general uses on the ground floor of the new buildings, and a new policy added to the municipal planning strategy to enable regulations in addition to the gross floor area increase. And just to show some examples of what the buildings could potentially look like, are some of the buildings here. And citizen engagement, planning staff have complied with the citizen engagement policies of the municipal planning strategy when processing these amendments. The initial advertisement outlining the proposed amendments was placed in the Chronicle Herald and on the municipal website. A public information meeting was held on April 1st. 2 of the major concerns were proposed to maximum gross floor area and the parking requirements. And through this proposal, we're not proposing to change any of the parking requirements, so the parking requirements would remain the same as they are in the land use bylaw currently. And a public hearing notice was already reviewed by the municipal clerk. So in conclusion, the increase to the number of dwelling units in the village core VC zone was a commitment that East Hants made when entering into the HAF program, or Housing Accelerator Fund program. The new regulations will be applicable to all village core VC zones. Existing design requirements will still be applicable to all new buildings, so those form-based zone requirements are still applicable, and new commercial requirements will be added to ensure the land use pattern lends itself to providing more human-scale development that has an interesting fabric at street level. The diversity of buildings and land uses will keep the village cores interesting and inviting to pedestrians and local commercial development. Thank you, Madam Warden.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions for staff? Councillor Musa?
Thank you, Madam Warden. Debbie, as of now, in the village core, are you allowed to put the parking in the front of the building?
Through you, Madam Chair, no parking is permitted in the front of the building. The parking either has to be to the side or to the rear of the building.
Okay. And for the building itself, like I know on Highway 2 mostly is our village core is mostly on Highway 2 and 214. So how many feet you have to be away from the highway for that?
Through you, Madam Warden, it really depends on Nova Scotia Public Works because both of those roads are owned by Nova Scotia Public Works. For example, on Highway 214, we found that Nova Scotia Public Works has asked for a 10-meter setback, whereas on Highway 2, they've been asking for a 5-meter setback.
5-meter setback. Because I only ask because now on Sackville Drive, where there's commercial, they're closer. So if that pass and I know we don't want parking in the front, and that part of the land is going to be wasted like that 5 meters. So is there any way we can talk to? I know it's not out, but probably after what happened here, I think we should talk to be able to ask if we could put it at 0 meter or 1 meter or something. Thank you.
Does any other counselor have any questions for staff? Okay. I will now open the floor for comments and questions. If you are viewing the YouTube live stream, you may use the YouTube chat feature, which is being monitored. First, does anyone attending in person have any questions or comments? Please come forward to the mic and
I just wanted to clarify, was that,
would
did
you
I hear that correct?
please state
Oh,
your
sorry.
name and
Richard
address for the
Tolson.
record.
Yeah. Did you say 10-meter setback on 214 and 5 meters on Highway 2?
Through you, Madam Warner, our regulations don't actually require a setback off of those highways. It's, you could be right up to the line according to our regulations, but Nova Scotia Public Works has been requesting some properties along Highway 214 to have a 10-meter setback from that front property line. It's really up to them. If we could get less, that'd be great, but that's what they've been directing.
Okay. I guess I would like to say that I am in favor with this going through. It would be nice to have more of a village core there, so then if you do have commercial and residential mix, you can actually get people to that area. The larger size of the building will permit for, nicer, more livable units. I think the parking should also be at the back. I don't agree to it having in front of the building, but yes, I'd just like to speak in favor of it, that in order to make it more livable, you do have to have a larger size footprint or gross floor area to develop those areas properly.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? And I, once again, just ask, our regs require you to state your name and address?
Sure.
For the record?
My name is Hans Vermeulen, through you, Madam Warden. Good evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to Council about the village core density increase. As I said, my name is Hans Vermeulen. I grew up in Milford on a dairy farm up on Vinegar Hill. I lived on the farm my entire life, and I still do. I operate the farm with a couple of siblings. And honestly, I know a lot more about cows and chickens and real estate development, but nevertheless, here I am. In our business, there's always been a need to provide help our employees with housing. And, there's always an old farmhouse or an affordable rental in the community we could use. But over the last decade, and particularly since the pandemic, the need for housing became acute. Get to the point in our business, and I think you've heard similar sentiments from other employers in the community, such as Shaw, is that employee housing is really a key factor in our ability to hire and retain people. And so, as we get to the point where we're requiring quite a bit of housing, I started to get more and more into real estate development and rental properties, and so that's led me here. I think the housing crisis that we're in, and you can't open the newspaper without reading something about it, but it's not always as visible in East Hants. I'm not going to see somebody living in a tent on my drive home tonight between here and Milford. Nevertheless, the level of affordability and the availability of housing in our community is really dire. On our dairy farm, they're not high-paid employees often, and these people struggle to find housing. So saying that, that brings us to where we're at today. June 19th, 2025, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation said we need to approximately double the current pace of home construction in Canada just to return to affordability levels we saw in 2019. They also identified Nova Scotia as one of the provinces where housing supply gaps are most acute, along with Ontario and British Columbia. My understanding is that the Housing Accelerator Fund is the federal government's way of addressing this housing crisis that we all know so much about. The Housing Accelerator Fund is the federal government's way of incentivizing municipalities and municipal governments to make changes to their bylaws to allow for housing that our constituents needed years ago. So the municipality of East Hants is going to get paid $5.8 million, so they let this housing get built, and the federal government obviously is putting the dollars behind that because they think this change is necessary. I listened to the debate around the first and second reading of this motion, and frankly, I've never followed municipal politics so closely. I understand that some of the controversy around this has boiled down to two things. One is the 1,888 square meters of gross floor area. And secondly, the commercial frontage requirement of 75% commercial use, rather than dictating that commercial use on the total commercial floor area. Ironically, I think these two things are sort of, opposites, because on one hand, if you want a smaller building and you want to fit 16 units, you need to have less commercial space to fit them. If you want more commercial space on that ground floor, you're going to need a bigger building. So, if we went to a model where it had to be, say, 75% of the ground floor commercial space, well, then we're going to need a much bigger building to fit the 16 units on the second and third story above it. I really like what planning staff has brought forward here, where they base it on the frontage use, because it allows the developer flexibility to, more rental units or less, bigger commercial space or smaller on the ground floor. But at the end of the day, the developer has some flexibility in there to do what's appropriate in that space. We have seen in the Village Core Zone, the picture that was up there where the lily pond and the new restaurant are. There is in the Village Core Zone, there is commercial development that has been entirely commercial. Developers are willing to build commercial where it makes sense. And similarly, we've seen Village Core buildings that are entirely residential. They're commercial ready, but they're never going to have a commercial unit in them. If we look around our community of what's happening in the Village Core Zone, I guess I would just ask staff a second, if there's ever been a 12-unit building built as of right within the 835 square meters permitted today.
Through Madam Chair, not a 12-unit building under the 835.
Has there been an 11-unit building that you know of? I don't need an official answer, but.
Through Madam Warden, I believe the maximum has been 8 units. 8 units at 835. And in those buildings, the unit sizes ranged from about 629 to 1,200 square feet, depending on what unit you were looking at.
So the reality is the Village Core Zone today does not allow for 12-unit buildings. I spent a couple $1,000s on a draftsman to draw one, and it wasn't pretty. The 12 units don't fit today. The Village Core Zone is limited by the gross floor area, and it's limited to 8-unit buildings. That's what we're seeing. The other picture that came up was Liz Turner's buildings there, kind of just across from Batars. Those are 8-unit buildings, and half of them are one-bedrooms that are 600 square feet. These buildings are not allowed to be townhouse style, so they need to have a common entrance. They need 2 fire exits. They need 2 staircases inside. They need a utility room. And heaven forbid you want to put in an elevator to make it accessible, because there goes a couple hundred more square feet. So that's what's happening in our Village Core Zone today. The other example is Tolson Developments built a new building there on the 214, just kind of past Linos. These buildings are never going to have commercial use in them when they're residential, even if they're commercial ready. And even if they decided to put commercial in them, I don't think the parking is there to allow for commercial use regardless. The other option developers have is a development agreement. And we see that what ELT Holdings did up on Bakery Lane that this council approved through development agreement, that was 72 units approved, 3 buildings, that I think the gross floor area on those buildings will be over 3,000 square meters. So on one hand, council seems apprehensive about this 1,888 square meters, but they just approved 3 buildings up in Enfield in a pretty sensitive area, if I would say, that are over 3,000 square meters each. I would note on that property, prior to the development agreement, they had a site plan approval in place, already approved for the 72 units in the Village Core Zone, no commercial component to it at all. And the way he did that is he took an 835 square meter building and he connected it to another one with a firewall between it, because the setbacks in the Village Core Zone on the side lot lines is 0. So these buildings can be semi-detached. So I can take as many 835 square meter buildings and sandwich them together if I wanted, similar to what was previously approved on that Bakery Lane location. So I just think, this is not the time to turn something like this down, because the developers are already either building pure residential or coming to you for a development agreement for something much larger in your Village Core Zone. You know, the building I really like, honestly, is the building with Aroma Maya in it in Enfield, because when I look at it, I think it's kind of close to the 1,888 square meters we're talking about here today. It's truly a mixed-use building. It has that commercial on the front. It has residential behind it and above it. You know, when I think about what this change is going to bring, it's going to bring more buildings like that into our community, which I think is the purpose of the Village Core Zone. Of course, I'm here because I have a vested interest. I own Village Core Zone land in Shubenacadie, and I would like to develop projects using these changes that are mixed-use buildings. I would like to avoid the development agreement process and do something as of right. I am one of the developers that attended the public information meeting on April 1st, and I know there was only 2 developers there and no residents, but that doesn't mean the concerns we raised were any less valid. And staff did not just take our word for it, they took that back, they considered it. They looked at the square footage required to build these buildings, and they agreed with some of our comments, but not all, and they modified their recommendation. You know, I heard in previous discussions around this change, I heard planning staff support it, I heard our chief administrative officer speak in support of it, and the 2 members of council who took the time to attend that public information session also have voted in support of it thus far. I may be wrong yet, but so far I haven't heard any change or pushback from citizens, and the development community largely supports it. In my opinion, another 300 square meters of floor area will not ruin the look and feel of our Village Core Zone, but it will make it possible to create reasonably sized housing units in a functional commercial space. It will meet the terms of the Housing Accelerator Fund. It will make full use of the precious areas in this community that are serviced by water, by wastewater, and by a sidewalk, and are truly walkable to amenities. It'll help avoid the pure residential development as of right, or these commercial-ready spaces that will never see commercial. So I hope council votes in support, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, I would ask, does any member of the public have any questions or comments through the live chat on YouTube? No, staff tell me there are none. So then, does any member of staff have any final comments? No. I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his committee's recommendation. I'm trying. I have clicked mics off and I've clicked mics on. Bear with me. Okay, there we go.
Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give second reading and approve the proposal to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to increase the Village Core Zone density to a maximum of 16 dwelling units permitted as of right through site plan approval with a ground floor commercial component. As chair of PAC, I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Second. Seconded by Councillor Tingley. All right. Does any final questions or comments from councillors? Okay, first up, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Well, the second gentleman, I didn't remember his name, but who spoke, he opened my eyes about something. So if we have 75% of the front as commercial, so the developer, when he apply for site plan approval, he's gonna tell you how much deep he's going. And for that, you're gonna calculate how many parking spot he's gonna need, right?
Through you, Madam Warden. So when they submit their application for site plan approval, they'll show the commercial space. They'll tell us what the commercial space is for, and then we'll calculate the parking requirements based on that use of commercial space. If it's, for example, a doctor's office or a chiropractor, it's a little bit different than calculation per a retail space or a restaurant. So it really depends on what the space is being used for.
Okay, so a couple years down the road, if the owner found out that he need more commercial space, can he increase if he doesn't have enough parking?
So you, Madam Warden, it really depends on what the commercial space that they're proposing. So we would look for the fact that they would need the commercial space, but under your variance requirements, the development officer can vary the amount of commercial parking lots or any parking lots by a certain amount. We don't usually use it unless there's an actual reason for it. I believe it was used once in where the Sweet Spot Chocolate Shop, that strip mall there. I think the variance was used once for there because there's no other space to develop on that land.
Yeah, thank you.
Counselor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you. So I'm just looking back to this started. We've got 835 square meters as of right in the village core right now. So the Celeste, where the Aroma Mea is within that footage.
Through you, Madam Warden, the Celeste was developed by a development agreement, so it's actually larger than that 835 square meters. I believe it's somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 square meters, somewhere. I'm not 100% sure, but it has 2, maybe 3 commercial spaces, and it also has, I believe, how many units, John? 10?
Okay, so that's, and you're between 12 and 15, but you can't narrow it down any more than that.
No, not off the top of my head without going to look at the plans.
So 835 is where we're at. It was then, the next proposal brought to us proposed 1,584 square meters, and then staff landed on 1,888 square meters, which is about 120% increase in order to get the funding, which we all agreed we were willing to do the 9 incentives in order to get there. The desired development in our community is what the village core was initially revolved around when it was put together. And what we have to remember is not everybody can afford the largest apartments. What we've got going on right now in East Hanson, certainly in my district, is that people would appreciate a little smaller apartments rather than having to go to Truro in order to get one. I know that it's nice to have the roomier apartments, but with roomier apartments comes a higher price tag. $400 less a month can be the difference between staying in the area where they are from and moving somewhere else. So that's something that we should keep in mind when talking about wanting to have the larger 2-bedroom apartments and what's more comfortable and whatnot. I just feel like this jumping from 835 to 1,888 is excessive. Not only that, but we have to realize that just up the road from a village core, for example, in Enfield and in other areas of the corridor, is the MUC zoning, where and other areas that don't have MUC zoning, where you've got larger 4- or 5-story apartment buildings that have a huge footprint compared to this. So it's not like this village core is the only place where you can have, you're trying to get larger apartment buildings when we can have them all through the corridor. So we are not restricted in size in the corridor or in anywhere, all along the developing areas. It's just the village core area that is looking to make such a big increase. And, I just think it's a shame. A lot went into the village core as it is now. And I can understand that we need to increase it. But to propose an increase and then to jump again and propose this other increase to bring it to what the proposal currently is now, I think it's excessive. And I think that we can meet our objectives without going that far. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I have no problem with what staff has recommended, but there are a few things that bug me. The fact that we're getting into building design. There are plenty of areas across the place, and design is in the eye of the beholder. making it that the third floor must be in the roof line creates, to what I would say a lot of people, an ugly building. And a lot of people would say they like it that way. And I think it should be up to the person building the building on their property to design their building the way they want. I've driven through the corridor many times. I've seen some very nice buildings down there that are flat roofed. It allows for better use of elevator shafts. It allows for HVAC. It allows for many other things to be done in a more sustainable manner, which takes away less of a square footage because you can put it on the roof for height adjustments. The buildings are normally, in my opinion, a lot of the times more well-built, and it doesn't deteriorate the slope or height of ceilings in the top floor units. So I'm really disappointed that part came from committee. Hearing the two gentlemen speak here today, that are people who are interested in taking advantage and moving forward with some development to help either their personal business or other people within the community. At FCM, Councillor Merriman and I went on a tour of an area, and I talked to many other people of municipalities even smaller than ours, that they've removed height restrictions in a lot of areas because they realize if you want to move towards transit or you want to move towards anything else, you need density, and 3 stories is not density. So I'm going to fully support this, but like I said, there are parts of this that I do think when we start dictating design in our communities, it can have a bad effect. Thank you.
Councillor Musa?
Thank you, Madam Warden. Speaking in support of the motion, we already have a lot of smaller apartments that already built under the 883 square meter. And I think if we open up to the bigger one, we could have a variety of homes that fit and suit every size, every family size we have in East Hants. Thank you.
Any final comments? I have no one left waiting to speak. Seeing none, we will go to the vote. Oh, sorry.
Through Madam Warden, just for clarification, the amendments that we're proposing actually propose to remove that the third story has to be built into the roof line. No, it had to be that way currently, but we're proposing to remove it, so it's just 3 stories, and if you want a peaked roof, you can have a peaked roof. If you want a flat roof, you can have a flat roof. Sorry.
We will go to the vote. And the motion has passed by a vote of 8-3, with Councillor Rhino, Councillor Garden Cole, and myself voting nay. So that concludes tonight's public hearings, and I would like to thank everyone for attending. So we will return to our agenda, and we will go to finish off correspondence for decision. All right, we'll go to the request from Denise Thompson, the owner of Shore Girl Adventures, seeking permission to access Burncoat Head Park for the purpose of offering guided nature walks and ocean floor tours after hours. And the CAO has just told me there were 2 more letters came in that had not been posted previously that are now posted and also in your emails, councilors. All right. When the button works, it works, and when it doesn't work, it doesn't. Okay, Alana.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Warden. So you have before you a request from Ms. Thompson. She is the owner of Shore Girl Adventures, and she is requesting the use of Burnt Coat Head Park to offer ocean floor tours after hours. So just for some background, the park closes at 5. That also closes the lighthouse and the washroom facilities. We do have a single portable washroom on site that we open up once the washroom building is closed, just to alleviate any incidents in the park after hours should somebody happen to arrive and require a facility. So internal staff got together. We spoke about what our thoughts were on this. So, you know, we did come away that we're not necessarily in support of this, just because we have some concerns about risk and liability. And you know, there's occupiers' liability as us as a municipality for owning the property. Should there be any accident or incident or occurrence where a group doesn't have insurance, then that would fall to the owner, and that would be us as a municipality. So council would have to understand and determine if they wanted to assume that risk. There wouldn't be staff on site after hours, since we do close at 5. The washroom facilities would be closed. Like I said, the lighthouse would be closed. And when we do offer those tours ourselves during operating hours, we have multiple staff on site. There is first aid response and first aid kit in the lighthouse, and we do staff with multiple individuals just to not just cover questions and tours and the lighthouse itself, but to be there to coordinate any sort of emergency response that may happen. So for those reasons, you know, staff aren't necessarily in support of that. So certainly it's up for council discussion, but that is the request before you.
Counselor Rhino.
Through you to staff, Madam Warden. Is not there other adventures that take place there, private enterprise that comes there to use that park, and that the monies, you know, are not reinvested back into the area, into the municipality?
Thank you, through Madam Warden. So we do have a bus tour group that comes from the city that does come to the site. They come to the site. We do not offer specialized tours. At this point, they offer sort of a landing fee, so we get a flat rate per bus. They come during operating hours. Staff meet them, and we staff accordingly for those, just to provide, you know, support, like I said, the gift shop and the lighthouse, as well as just some information necessarily on the ledge. We also have another enterprise that comes and they offer dining on the ocean floor, and they pay a flat rate fee. It's during operating hours, staff are present, and then they actually pay individually per person per tour. So they offer a food experience that we don't offer, but those two groups do pay a fee and have an agreement to do those two opportunities, yeah.
Okay, so if I may, through, having said that, do those bus tours and those, the other, their enterprise that uses the ocean floor, do they carry their own liability? Is there any special circumstances there that when they use that park that we should be aware of?
So through you, Madam Warden, they do, as part of our agreement, we do get insurance, the appropriate insurances as part of their agreements, yes. Special circumstances, I'm not quite sure what you're alluding to.
Well, I see this as an opportunity. You know, we're all about promoting the shore, up and down that shore. We're all about bringing in tourism there that can, you know, tourists can spend their well-earned money within East Hants. I see this as another avenue for, to do that, to accomplish that goal of bringing it in. If the hiccup is somewhere, you know, about liabilities and stuff, if this company, small company, could provide insurance purpose, you know, insurance proof and cover things like that, and there's already, like you said, a porta potty on that, I would think that would be a benefit to the shore area. Now, I also know that, you know, I brought in letters of support here this morning for everybody, and they've been sent out. So there is an ask for this up and down the shore. There is a support for this up and down the shore. So I'm wondering if something not, cannot be worked out, so, that we can add to the tourism sector up and down the shore.
I can answer that. I can answer. Through you, Madam Warden, so certainly, if council was comfortable in taking on that additional risk and wanted to staff to explore some type of an agreement, there would be, similar to other agreements, indemnification and a requirement of insurance. As of right now, I believe we have $5 million liability that we request from organizations, specifically at Burnt Coat and at other locations if they want to utilize our space. And there would have to be, parameters, protocols, and all of that. But that's, again, up for council consideration if they wish to.
I guess
have
for
staff
me,
explore that.
it's equal. I like to see equality across, I want to see everybody have the same opportunity. If one person is using that park for private gain, and which can be linked back to tourism, I think everybody should have that opportunity, right? Let's paint everybody with the same brush here. And I'd like to see some kind of, if this entrepreneur can meet the insurance requirements or whatever set up, that will be a bonus for our area. That will, won't be a detriment to our area. And the more people we bring in, the better that more people going out and saying how well they were received down and what they can see down there in Burnt Coat. So I see this as a plus. I don't see this as a detriment.
At all, Counselor? Counselor Perry?
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you to staff. So currently, all other operations that come down on the ocean floor and all the other tours happen during open hours of the park.
Through the warden, yeah, so there's staff present on site and it's during operating hours.
Okay, so there's been, so like when the park is closed, we kind of close the park. I don't disagree that it's not an opportunity. The biggest thing for me is the liability and the security. Because I do think if we are to entertain this, we need to negotiate and we need to talk to the fire service. Because having people in the park after hours creates an extra liability that they might need to be aware of. Because right now, they're aware of during the operational hours, when people are in the park and when there could be something happening on the ocean floor. And then if there's things are happening after hours that are unknown, they definitely need to be consulted with on their input as well for the risks, because it's not about not allowing a group to have this. It's the risk to the municipality and the patrons that partake, because the park is technically closed, and that's where the liability issue for me comes up. And if those can be, if all that stuff can be cleared up and all that stuff can be investigated, right? I don't personally see an issue with coming forward with a report and exploring it and possibly for a recommendation for something to happen. But there's still questions and things that need to be answered to ensure that the taxpayers are protected against any liability, and that our first responders are aware and known that these operations are taking place, and that during those periods of time, they might have to be extra vigilant. But I have no doubt that any extra services offered in any area of the municipality that helps with tourism and helps with local businesses is a positive thing. We just have to make sure it's all done safe and above the board. And that's just going to set a precedent. It'll be the first operation after hours on a municipal facility, correct?
Through the warden for park facilities, yeah.
For park facilities, yeah. So I think if we're going to set something up, we have to do it right, and we have to make sure that when we set this precedent, that our parks can come for agreements like this. We need to make sure all of the legal and safety things are well and clearly defined and known before, in my mind, council can have a vote on this. Thank you.
Counselor Tingley?
Through the chair, I can see some benefits to this, like possibly increasing spending to local businesses, educational opportunities for people that's take the tour, increase visibility for the park and for East Hants. But I've jotted down some questions just listening to this. There's other questions and considerations as well, like are there any environmental impacts that we have to consider? You mentioned about accidents and injuries. You know, we certainly would have to cover ourselves with that. I would actually like to see some kind of a plan, you know, how we're going to deal with how the tour operator, what their business plan is. You know, what are they looking at bringing on the floor, and what do they plan on doing there? You know, is there an occupation and safety plan or occupiers liability exposure plan? Is there some contract wording proposal? How would the liability be dealt with? You know, I'd like to see a complete plan before I said, yeah, this is 100%, you've got my 100% support. I see the benefits. Other things, the municipality providing oversight, you know, should we provide oversight if there's tours there going on there? And do we have the ability to provide oversight? Is there a potential conflict between invitees of the municipality to the park and invitees of this tour? And how does this align with other plans that management of the municipality have for that park? So I think we have to carefully weigh the potential benefits and drawbacks, but you know, there's certainly benefits, but I'd like to see a lot more to this than just, yeah, somebody's got an idea, they want to do tours on the ocean floor. I think we have to look at all these things before we go ahead with it. That's it.
Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Warden, through you to staff. Just trying to get a fuller understanding of what they're proposing. I can see the benefits. I worry about the liability. Two things, what would the time of operation, like right now it's 8:30, we're a half hour from probably official sunset, so they wouldn't be there after dark, I would hope.
So through the warden, I think those are really great points, and I think that's something that would all have to be worked out if council wanted us to explore an agreement, or alternatively bring back a staff report outlining some of the concerns or considerations and things like that. But the expectation would be that those parameters would be outlined in any sort of agreement with a group moving forward, and perhaps that agreement states that, you know, no tours, understanding what the length of tour could be. It could be an hour to an hour and a half. That's similar to what the ocean floor tours are currently offered by municipal staff at Burnt Coat. But you could put those parameters in an agreement to state no tours, you know, and I wouldn't apply it to a time, but I would say up to 3 hours before dusk or 2 hours before dusk, and just keep yourself covered, not necessarily put a time frame, but I think dusk is the key factor there. But again, you know, hearing some questions from council, if council wanted us to explore this further, we could bring back a report that would sort of outline some of this. We could talk to the operator about their proposal and get some understanding of exactly what they would be looking at, and bring that back for council to consider.
I was also wondering, I feel that we would need at least one staff member there. I don't think we'd allow anybody to use any of our other, certainly the Sportsplex, the Dome, anything like that without a staff member. So would that be possible? I know it's going to be an increased cost to us.
Through the warden, then certainly, I mean, if that was something that council wanted to help mitigate some of their concerns, then we'd have to look at that, but there would be an additional cost associated to covering that, I would think. You know, you would have to look at what that staff person cost would be. And then, as part of the agreement, is it then charged back to the individual, and how does that fit within their business model?
Well, that's everything now, thanks.
Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, through you, Madam Warden. I think most of these have been covered. The liability is an issue. The additional hours would have to be somehow covered. And the first question I have, why can they not operate during our existing hours? Is that have you had any indication from them?
Through the warden, I expect it's after hours because municipal staff offer ocean floor tours on appropriate tide days during operating hours. So municipal staff do this. This is what the
Okay.
tourism interpretive guides do at specifically Burnt Coat Head Park. They do offer ocean floor tours. You sign up for them online. We've done them for school groups and things like that, but we do offer our own ocean floor tours. So I believe the request to do it after hours is so as not to impede with the tours
Existing.
that our staff are doing themselves.
And the only other, sorry.
No, that's
The only
okay.
other concern I would have, that you mentioned like at to dusk, I'd say it had to be at least an hour and a quarter prior to dusk in case there is, I mentioned like an emergency or something like that. Because sending rescue people in there in the dark does complicate things, so I think we warrant more information maybe before we make a decision. Thank you.
Counselor Rhino.
Well, again, if the entrepreneur can meet the liability requirements, can meet any dawn till dusk or limitations on after hours and things like that, I think this will be an addition, even in a bigger addition to the park. Just a question. Did not I recall a event that happened after hours was on the Burnt Coat Head Park after hours that took place here last year or the year before with regard, and how did we handle that at the time?
Through the warden, we did offer a specific Stargazer event, and it was not on the ocean floor. It was within the park. We had additional staff present, and we had, excuse the term, we had an individual come in and actually guide some individuals and teach them about the stars, but it wasn't within the ocean floor. It was within the park. It was a municipally run event, yes. Yeah, we did it as a single offering, like a Stargazer and Sunset event.
So I guess through you, so then there has been no after-hours dinners on the ocean floor at the park?
Through the warden, so the way it works with dining on the ocean floor is their contract runs from 10 until 6, so they cover the additional hour of staff time, but that's for the cleanup and the put away, but they're not, we have none scheduled in the evening, like after that time frame.
But there is a contract
There is a contract, yes, we have a contract with that group.
and it runs to what, 6?
The contract time period is 10 until 6. The dinner doesn't go until 6. The 10 until 6 allows them time to set up and then take down. And we have a staff person they pay for the coverage of that staff person to stay for that additional hour.
Okay, and the bus tours that come there are during open hours?
Within the contract, yes, we have them during operating hours. If they show up outside of that, it's not because they put it through us. Yeah, but it's our
So if they
understanding.
show up outside and they still use the park?
To my understanding, they do not. If they do, I'm not aware of that. We have a clear contract with dates. We staff additional people for that, and we don't stay after 5 o'clock for that.
Well, I guess, to me, like I say, I'll repeat it, but if this entrepreneur can meet the liability, can meet the first aid requirements, can meet conditions, and I can't see why we wouldn't look at, possibly making a contract and making this, adding to the tourism sector within, up and down that shore, which will benefit East Hants. That's my feelings right there. Thank you.
Counselor Miriam.
Thank you, Madam Warden. It's a really important discussion. There's a lot of perspectives, and I empathize with Councillor Rhino. I mean, it's in the district, and you want to be supportive of that. I do think a staff report does offer the opportunity to evaluate a bit further, and I guess. All options are on the table by the very nature of that. So before we have to make a final decision, I would be curious to have a staff report. And for that reason, I'm going to make a motion that we do have staff put, I move that we ask staff to prepare a report on this topic, and that they take the opportunity to build in advanced consultation with fire services to get that perspective as part of the report and to build in options for the recommendations.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Rhino.
Okay, so within that motion, there will be staff will have to, be talking to the entrepreneur and straighten out a lot of these questions that have, been asked here today. Is that is in what you meant in the motion also, isn't it?
That would be the intent.
Well, I would assume that if staff were going to do a staff report around it, they'd have to talk to the
Yeah,
proponents.
I just want that out there. All right, seeing that, I'll support the motion. This may not be, this may take longer. The entrepreneur may not, it may be too late in the season, but hopefully for next year that, or late fall, that we could have something there to add to the tourism sector. Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Okay, so that concludes correspondence for decision. And gosh, folks, we're only almost an hour behind. The next item would be committee reports. And beginning with ratification. Oh, sorry, I skipped the whole, yes. Item 9, ratification, the portion of 77 Arrowhead Drive in Enfield. And that will be Councillor Garden Cole.
Ratification acquisition of a portion of 77 Arrowhead Drive, PID 45438389. In July 2024, Council directed staff to enter into negotiations for an approximately 1 acre portion of 77 Arrowhead Drive, PID 45280484. The negotiation was successful. The transaction closed on December 18, 2024. Subdivision and PID assignment were completed with the Land Registry in January 2025. Partial removal of a recorded interest mortgage remains ongoing. However, the purchase can now be ratified. Move that council authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale for Parcel 1, PID 45438389, a 1 acre portion of parent parcel 77 Arrowhead Drive, Enfield, for a purchase price of $55,000 plus HST and transaction costs funded by the water utility. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. Any discussion on the motion? We'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Next is the ratification of lands on Old Enfield Road.
Ratification acquisition of Lot 2, Lot 3, Lot 4, and a portion of Lot M, Old Enfield Road, Enfield. In December 2024, Council directed staff to enter an agreement of purchase and sale to acquire PIDs 45164613, 45162377, 45164696, and a portion of PID 45082518, Old Enfield Road, Enfield. The negotiation was successful. The transaction closed March 14, 2025. Subdivision and PID assignment were completed with the Land Registry in May 2025. The subdivided portion of PID 45082518 was assigned PID 45439189. The purchase can now be ratified. Move that council authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale with Benry Contracting to acquire PIDs 45164613, 45162377, 45164696, and PID 45439189 for a purchase price of $1,030,500 plus HST, plus due diligence, subdivision, and legal fees, funded through a distribution of any surplus of March 31st, 2025, along with future open space contributions from the Horn Settlement Growth Management Area per option 3 in the staff report dated December 12th, 2025, with due diligence and subdivision funded from professional services reserve in 2024-2025. As chair of the committee, I so move.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Counselor Dixon. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. The motion is passed by a vote of 10-1, with Counselor Rhino voting nay. Next on the agenda is the Audit Committee report, and in spite of what it says in the agenda, I am not the chair of the Audit Committee. Back to you, Counselor Garden-Cole.
The committee held a meeting this evening on June 25th, 2025. The following motions are coming forward as a result of the meeting. First item, financial statements 2024-25 and municipal auditor 2025-26. The committee received a presentation from Nick Hartson, CPA, and Jeremy Millay, CPA, CA from Deloitte, summarizing what was audited in this fiscal year, which included the consolidated financial statements, the LEMC recoverable expenses, and the water utility statements for the UARB. The presentation of the 2025 audit results was also included. The Audit Committee recommends to Council that Council adopt the March 31st, 2025 financial statements as presented by Deloitte at the June 25th, 2025 Audit Committee meeting, and that Deloitte LLP be appointed as municipal auditor for the 2025-26 fiscal year. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously.
Second item, membership appointment 2025-26. As per Section 44 of the MGA, the Audit Committee recommends to Council that Council appoints the membership of the Audit Committee for 2025-26 be comprised of the Warden, the Chair of the Corporate and Residential Services Committee, and 2 additional councillors and 1 public member. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Musa. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Someone has not voted. The motion is passed unanimously. And that concludes the Audit Committee report. Next, we will go into Corporate and Residential Services Committee, so you're still on, Counselor Garden-Cole.
Okay. The committee held its regular meeting on June 17, 2025, and the following motion is coming forward as a result of that meeting. First item, Council Procedural Policy Update. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee considered updates to the Council Procedural Policy to incorporate and clarify the Roberts Rules of Order at the April 2025 meeting. Updates to the Council Procedural Policy were attached to the June executive meeting. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee directed further clarification be made in Section 4.1.9 that the intent of the section be modified to make clear that the wardens serving as ex officio on a committee, that their presence would not constitute a quorum. The updated draft policy is attached to the council agenda. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee also recommends that Council approve updates to the Council Procedural Policy as attached to and amended at the Executive Committee agenda dated June 17, 2025. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Are there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously by those who were in the room for the discussion.
This concludes the report.
Okay, we'll now move to the Infrastructure and Operations Committee report. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on June 17, 2025. The following motions are coming forward as a result of those meetings. Roads drainage upgrades, Tyler Street and Lacey Ann Avenue. The council approved capital project 24-017, road drainage upgrades, Tyler Street, Lacey Ann Avenue, described as approximately 60 meters of concrete curb and gutter along the shoulder of Tyler Street to intersection with Lacey Ann, with additional upgraded culverts along Lacey Ann south of Tyler Street intersection. The final approved upgrades proposed by Design Point differ from the original project outlined in the capital budget, which has prompted the report to council seeking a publicly amended project scope so that there is transparency for how public money should be spent to improve this area's storm drainage functionality. The Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend the council give approve the revised project scope for Capital Project 24-017 Road Drainage Upgrades, Tyler Street, Lacey Ann Avenue, as per the design recommendations made by the engineering consultant Design Point that is listed in the report titled Tyler Street and Lacey Ann Avenue Project Scope Update, attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated 17 June 2025. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Merriam. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you, Warden. Number 2, Private Road Standards Background, C25, bracket 148. Council had requested a background report on the private road standard to support understanding of how it differs from how public roads are required to be built in East Hants. In the April 2025 meeting of council, a motion was passed for staff to bring back a report outlining the differences between municipal paving standards for private roads and municipally owned roads. The Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend that council add the discussion of private driveways and laneways as well as possible standards as part of the next plan review. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hibbs. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously.
This concludes the report.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee. Counselor Rhino.
Thank you. Madam Warden, the committee held its regular meeting on June the 17th, 2025, and the following are coming forward as a result of the meeting. First, Belknap Park Playground. Council made a motion, C25, bracket 55, requesting staff to bring back a report regarding options for replacement playground PID 453-32715, open space lands that were recently transferred into municipal ownership from the province. A number of years ago, the group operated a sports court and a playground at the corner of Belknap Avenue and Withrow Drive. The playground consisted of swings, spring feature components, and a residential grade wood play structure with a slide. In late 2024, the municipal staff removed the swings and the playground equipment as they did not meet the minimum CSA guidelines and were in extremely poor condition. Staff provided the request report with options, and the following recommendation is the result. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends to council that council approve option 1 to plan to add a new playground project as part of the 2026-2027 budget discussions, and if approved, construct it in the summer of 2026, which with the following options to be determined, with funding options to be determined. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hibbs. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Someone has, motion is passed unanimously.
All right, now item 2, District Recreation Fund Second Intake. The District Recreation Funding Program offers annual funding opportunities to groups that provide a benefit to the residents of East Hants and offer the development of programs, activities, and infrastructure that encourage active and healthy lifestyles. Second District Recreation Fund Intake closed on April 30th, 2025, with 3 grant applications were received. All 3 applications meet the following criteria and have been included in the report. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommend to council that council approve District Recreation Funding 2025 intake number 2. Applicant, Knoll Road Willing Workers, toll road wheeling workers. From District 5, 5,761, and from District 11, 5,761, totaling 11,522. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded?
Now, if I
Go
may,
ahead.
having said that, I would move an amendment that District 5 put in the the first request of 11,522, along with yours in District 11, which would bring it to a total of, without math,
I think staff have the numbers if you want.
You have the
because I had
numbers?
talked to
Okay.
staff, yeah.
Through the chair, I believe you're looking for District 5, 11,522, and District 11, 5,500, for a total of $17,055, which would fund their entire project.
17,000. Okay. So I move that for a total of 17,055. So I move that amendment.
Moved, seconded by Counselor Perry. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amendment. And the amendment has passed unanimously. Now we're at the amended motion, folks, which sees the entire project funded with the amounts as staff and Counselor Rhino have read out. So, any discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
All right, continuing on, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee also recommends to council, the council approve District Recreation Fund 2025 intake number 2, E.H. Horn, excuse me, E.H. Horn Preservation Society. From District 1, 3,156. From District 2, 2,000. District 3, 1,000. District 4, 1,000. District 6, 1,000. District 7, 3,156. From District 10, 12,682, for a total of $23,994. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Moved and seconded. I'm just going to pause in case.
Oh, sorry, I was admiring it. I need to declare a conflict.
So Counselor Garden Cole is declaring a conflict. We'll give staff time to get the book and.
Thanks, buddy. I'm good now. This whole fella looks after me.
Just for any of the public who might be listening, Counselor Garden Cole is declaring a conflict as she's a member of that organization.
Oh, thank you, sir.
All right, counselors, the motion is on the floor. We will go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee also recommends to council that council approve District Recreation Funds intake number 2 for Stanley Support Aviation Association, District 11, $10,000. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Counselor Dixon. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
And the third item, East Ants Multi-Use Trails Association request, temporary maintenance agreement. In December 2024, staff brought forward potential forms of agreements and land management program options specific to the former Dominion Atlantic Railway line, DAR. Council gave directions to engage in discussions with the East Ants Multi-Use Trail Association to entertain a long-term agreement following completion of the survey. The East Ants Multi-Use Trail Association has the opportunity to collaborate with the Drift Climber Snowmobile Club to reallocate funds from a previous Drift Climbers project to do repair and maintenance work on the DAR. So from that, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommend to Council that Council give the CAO direction to enter into discussions with the East Ants Multi-Use Trail Association in collaboration with the Drift Climber Snowmobile Club to establish a 6-month temporary maintenance agreement to conduct maintenance work on an approximately 9-kilometer section of the former DAR line from Kennecook to Trentham Road, PIDs 452-25190 and PIDs 452-25182. As Chair of the Committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I was wondering how long it's gonna take you to do that.
Through the warden, through the chair, you're asking how long is it going to take to do the agreement? The real estate team is quite phenomenal, and they have a lot of drafts that we could work with on this, so I think we can actually get this out fairly quickly, probably in the next few days.
A few days, because I was wondering if the 6 months will be enough for them, like, because now we're in
Through the chair,
almost in July.
the group asked for the 6 months, and again, I think that turnaround time is,
And we could extend it if needed, right?
if the group requested that, then we would bring that back to council for council discussion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll go to the Planning Advisory Committee report to Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on June 17, 2025 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of that meeting. Presentation from Kevin Neat, Clayton Developments regarding Kiln Creek lands. Kevin Neat from Clayton Developments made a presentation to the committee regarding the proposed changes to the Kiln Creek development. PLN 24-015, Clayton Developments Amendment to DA for Kiln Creek lands. In June 2020, Council approved a development agreement to omit the Kiln Creek development. In February 2025, a development agreement amendment application was presented to PAC. At that meeting, several concerns were raised. Council tabled a motion to give initial consideration and approval to schedule a public hearing. Planning staff have been discussing the concerns raised by PAC with the developer, and they have submitted amendments to their application and made a presentation to PAC explaining the changes. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Council give initial consideration to amendments to the existing Shaw Group Limited Development Agreement for a mixed-use master plan development lands for the purpose of enabling a public hearing to be scheduled and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Dixon. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
PLN 25-004, rezoning and redesignation for Havenwood Drive, Shubenacadie. In April 2025, an application to change the designation and zoning for property on Havenwood Drive, Shubenacadie was received from RYC Property Limited. The changes sought would permit 4 on-street townhouses with a total of 24 dwelling units as well as 20 additional semi-detached units. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting to consider an application from RYC Property Limited for mapping amendments to the GF LUM and the LUB maps for portions of PID 45097227 Havenwood Drive, Shubenacadie. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Deputy Warden McPhee. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. The motion is passed unanimously.
Plan 25-003, Serenity Lodge amendments to official community plan. Planning staff received direction from East End's Council on March 26, 2025, to direct staff to find a way forward to assist Ms. McCaskill to separate her business and dwelling through development agreement or an alternative. As a result, staff have prepared amendments that would allow for the subdivision of 53 Bakery Lane and 39 Russell McKean Drive. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting to consider proposal to amend the MPS and LUB by adopting policies that will permit council to consider entering into a development agreement on land zone 2 dwelling unit residential R2 zone to permit institutional use IU zone used to be subdivided on an existing right-of-way easement in the growth management area. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Hibb. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously.
CR 25 bracket 159 and CR 25 bracket 28 accessory dwelling units. In January of 2025, East End Municipal Council passed a motion directing staff to explore the design requirements in the land use bylaw for accessory dwelling units. This report outlines the current design regulations for accessory dwelling units and proposed changes to the land use bylaw to amend the design requirements for stick-built units. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give first reading to amend the land use bylaw section 3.14- accessory dwelling units to amend the minimum lot sizes and design requirements, and where there is no net increase of lot coverage for lots under 600 square meters, a garage suite could be permitted, and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Perry. Any discussion on the motion? We'll go to the vote. Still waiting for someone to vote. It's in. Motion is passed unanimously.
Lot grading and drainage. At their March 2024 council meeting, council passed a motion directing staff to write a report regarding extending bylaw P 1200 lot grading and drainage to lands in the unserviced areas of East End to provide options for council's consideration. The purpose of the lot grading and drainage bylaw is to manage the drainage of water on individual lots so as not to have a negative impact on the subject property or adjoining lands. The bylaw was adopted in 2006 and is only applicable to lands located in the gross management areas. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council direct staff to remain with the status quo regarding bylaw P 1200, lot grading and drainage bylaw. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Rhino. Councillor Perry.
I gotta declare a conflict of interest of a legal nature.
Okay. Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, I can't support this motion because I believe that we have a responsibility to do whatever we reasonably can do to protect people from flooding. And this decision to do nothing does absolutely nothing to protect people from flooding. Councillor, if I recall right, Councillor Perry provided us with photographs of a resident that was experiencing flooding due to inadequate grading and drainage, and requested that this report come back from staff. Then our municipal planners considered the service areas, the potential costs, the impact inadequate lot draining, grading and drainage was having on residents, and consulted with it looks like few residents and developers in 3 public meetings. They then come back with a written report stating the council should require lot grading and drainage plans for the unserviced areas when structures are close to property lines. So they kind of we're not going to do it in every situation, but in a certain distance from property lines. And what I heard is the reasons to require grading and drainage was to mitigate flood risks, damage, mitigate environmental damage, protect property values, help future property owners settle liability disputes when flooding does occur. And the municipal planners recommended we go forward with that. The only reason I heard that we not go forward with it is the upfront costs. This has all occurred before, similar types of things in the serviced areas. At one time, councils didn't even want to have planners, and we didn't have lot grading and drainage here either. And we left it up to developers, and we know how that went. We're left with a legacy where we have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of claims every so often, and then regularly every year we have lots of floods. So I think it's not reasonable to do nothing, so I can't support the motion. That's all I get to say.
Okay. Counselor Musa. I did click the button.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I would like to declare a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Well, I will be supporting the motion. And as stated in the executive committee, there was only one other municipality that had this across, and then they took it out. We'd be the only one that, if this did happen to go through, we'd be the only one that had it there. We're encouraging development all the time. And more so, we'd love to see development in the rural area. But, people are struggling. People are having a tough time scraping enough to get the money to get for a mortgage. And then they got to come up with another $5,000 to $6,000 more on top of this for something that is going to end up in court at some point anyway. So it's still going to be a legal matter. I don't want to deter any development, especially in our area, where we're at, and everything's been going good there. What we had was a couple of problems in a certain area, and this is not to say that this not come back. If these problems increase down the road, this cannot come back, and we can have another kick at the can at it. But for right now, this by staying with the status quo, it's not going to annoy people and make it harder for them to get funding and stuff like that to construct a home. And also at the public meetings, we heard from a lot of people, and what they said, you know, a lot of them were engineers, and he said that this is not needed. So I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, the only thing I can add is, I'm 100% for development as well, including in the rural area. Wherever we can develop, you know, to reduce the shortage of housing and affordable housing, I'm 100% behind it. But Councillor Perry submitted that photograph. I've seen these situations play out myself, and I know what's happened in the serviced area once proper grading and drainage was done. It's been substantially reduced, but the legacy problems we have because of poor draining, poor grading, and, you know, even developers that wouldn't even put a check valve on a sewer line or a wastewater line or a stormwater line. You know, just simple little things. If you say you're going to just leave it up to them to resolve the problem, that just didn't seem to work. And everything I hear at NSFM, FCM, through the province, through the federal government, they're trying to reduce flooding. And we had our professional planners come back with a good plan of what we could do to do it. And what we're doing is delaying it. And I've seen in my past career that these delays cause enormous damage to people. And so I'm just not going to support it because I think I have an obligation to try to protect people from flooding. That's it.
Any further discussion? So the question is to remain with the status quo, just for clarification, which means we will not, if you vote in favor of this, we are not bringing in regulations. So, okay, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed by a vote of 6-3, with Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Tingley, and myself voting nay. All right.
Last item is the amendments to the village core zone, which was dealt with at the public hearing. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilors, that concludes our committee reports. We now will go in camera for a brief meeting or a brief topic around a land issue. Adam, so we'll give staff time to take us offline. although I do have a lot. Okay, folks, I would report that we met in camera to discuss a land issue. There are no motions coming forward from that discussion. Next on our agenda is the warden's report. I will turn the chair over to you, Deputy Warden.
Okay, go ahead.
It was been a very busy month since the last meeting we had on May 23rd. The CAO and Jesse and myself met with representatives from Colchester and Kings counties to have some preliminary discussions around J-class roads and possible discussions with the province. On May 25th, I presented an 80th birthday certificate to Mrs. Diane McPhee. May 28th to June 2nd, I attended FCM. On June the 5th, I attended a meeting via Zoom with staff, some of our staff, and Dr. Strang around community water utilities. On June the 6th, I joined Councillor Hebb for a meeting with the RCMP to discuss an ongoing issue in his area. On June the 8th, Gore Fun Fair Open House, I attended that. June the 10th, Leadership Awards in the Hants North area. June 21st, I attended the walk in Shubenacadie for the National Indigenous Peoples Day. That same evening, I attended the Elmsdale Fire Banquet and enjoyed a lovely meal, and also attended a celebration of life for Sammy Farfood, who is a very well-liked and respected businessman in Kennecott. June 22nd, attended Elaine Tucker's 90th birthday. June 23rd, with Alana and Evan, I met at the Walton Lighthouse with the Minister of Environment, Minister Hallman, about the moving of the Walton Lighthouse. Of course, Hants North Prom was last night. I did attend the part of that, and June 25th, today, the CAO and I received an online briefing from the Justice Minister prior to the release of the press release on the police review. And also earlier today, I met as a member of the Audit Committee. That concludes my report, just very quickly and briefly running through the past month. Thank you.
Oh, it's only back to you, Ward.
Thank you. We'll now go into business from councillors. We'll start with Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, nothing to report this month, just a normal month. Just want to thank staff for all the help throughout the month, as usual, responding to questions from constituents, and that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I attended yesterday a meeting between few residents and MLA Brad Johns about the quarry, and it was very disturbing for me knowing that we have useless Department of Environment that only care about the big pockets. I learned that, and I was gonna ask them, if you cannot enforce your law, just pass it to us and we'll do it for you. But I didn't, I was short of that. And other than that, I cooked some fish for the fire hall, for the firemen's fair, and that's it.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Yeah, I attended the Uniacke District School Awards for Student Achievement, and there were some impressive results. The Citizenship Award went to a well-deserving young man who has proven himself well in the community. But there's also an academic challenge that happens all across the country that students sign up for. And the #1 student in all of Nova Scotia was here in East Hants from Mount Uniacke District School for grade 8. So that is something placed in the top 5% nationally. So that was a pretty big accomplishment for a small area. We did have the Fireman's Fair the past weekend. It was very well attended, beautiful day, and, you know, wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, and great time was had by all. Councillor Musa spoke about the quarry. Again, there was another large blast. Residents of Lakelands, Mount Uniacke, East Hants, South Rawdon, and even Upper Sackville called and complained about their houses shaking and stuff. And so we're talking 15, 20 kilometers away from this quarry. And this is right in the heart of the community, right in the heart of our growth management area. It's just an atrocity that it's even there. Anyways, moving on, the one last thing I have, I'm not gonna go over everything I attended over the month. I'm just gonna make a motion. I'm gonna move that council improve an increase of up to $2,000 to the park's operating budget for the purpose of constructing a crusher dust walkway going from the Mount Uniacke Community Memorial parking lot to the playground inclusive swing, with these additional funds coming from the Mount Uniacke recreation rate. And the reason for this motion is been approached by at least 4 families in the community that have children with mobility issues or wheelchairs or walkers that are having a hard time making it from the parking lot to the accessible swing because the wood chips are very hard to push a wheelchair over. So the construction of this path will aid to make that much easier for the parents, because some of the kids are getting larger and larger and they're harder to move by themselves. So that this will hopefully alleviate issues for those families. So that's my motion.
We have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Tingley. Any discussion on the motion? We'll go to the vote. Motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And the last thing I'd like to say is with the heat we've had over the last couple days, it was great to see some residents out checking on their neighbors to make sure everybody was okay. The heat affects people in various different ways, and sometimes we forget it's just as dangerous as the cold. So I want to commend the person who knocked on my door when I was in my house to make sure that everything was cool and stuff. They were going around checking everybody in the whole street to make sure everybody was okay. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And I just wanted to give a bit of a shout out to participation in the Freedom Day March. I thought it was, very interesting, valuable, worthwhile, and pleased to participate. And as well, councillors Mitchell, McPhee, and the warden were there as well, so that was great. Other than that, no issues to bring forward from District 6 this week. Thank you.
Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Warden. Just a couple of things. I was also at the FCM in Ottawa, attended the Atlantic Mayors Conference last week in St. John. It was quite interesting, a lot of interesting presentations there. And I did get home in time for the National Indigenous Peoples Day and the walk, which Councillor Merriam has mentioned. And we had our final Haydays meeting, so everything seems to be in line for the 1st of July, and we just have to hope on the weather. That's everything for me, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Warden. Just a couple of things. You mentioned that we met with the RCMP, and I just want to thank staff for the tour through the corridor area of all the facilities we had there. It was very informative, and I know I was there a few years ago, but things certainly have changed, and it was a great information session. Thank you.
Councillor Dixon.
Thank you. Mine will be brief as well. I guess the biggest complaints I'm getting is around the parking and speeding in the Albany Drive, Shamrock area, which I'm encouraging people to call the RCMP, take videos, send it to them, and let them follow up. Also, the tour, like fellow councillor here mentioned, I thought that was exceptionally well done, and a learning experience for a lot of the work that goes on in the municipality that we as councillors don't see. Quite impressive. The last thing was I attended with Enfield Fire Vehicle Education Challenge this past weekend in Prince Edward Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Warren. I'll try to be brief. I had a very enjoyable filmization tour with fellow councilors, I want to thank staff. Every time I go, I seem to learn something that I didn't think I need to learn, but it was enjoyable. I also, on the Saturday the 14th, attended the Richie Gilby Car Show and saw some residents. And I also, on that same day, attended the 41st Annual Review and Awards presentation, 652 Milford and District Lions, Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron. 2 library board meetings in this month, the audit on the 18th and the AGM and the regular meeting last evening in Truro. The Equity and Community Wellness Committee meeting for NSFM, we met on the 19th. I also attended the Indigenous Activities in Shuby on June 21st and had a chance to beat Ian Knockwood's drum during the march. The Elmsdale Fire and Emergency Services thank the politicians for showing up for the awards evening. On Monday of this week, I presented the Municipal Leadership Award to Manny Brennan. And just before council night, we finished off with the municipal audit. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Warden. Lots going on in District 1, including still having continued concerns about speeding and lack of sidewalks for children walking to school up to 1.6 kilometers through subdivisions where speed limit posted is 50 kilometers an hour. I've attended numerous meetings, including CCOA's AGM, as they prepare to move to their new location here in the business park. Richie Gilby Car Show. I attended the Elmsdale Firefighters Award Dinner to celebrate their volunteers, which was lovely. And just a little piece of information for the public and anyone who's watching and my fellow councillors. Canada Day Parade is happening in the Enfield-Elmsdale area this year. So it starts off with a pancake breakfast at the Enfield Fire Hall at 8 a.m. on July 1st. And then the parade is happening starting at 10 a.m. at the Elmsdale Elm Truck Center and going to the Enfield Legion, and that's rain or shine. And then there's for the first annual picnic and music event is being held at St. Bernard's Park in Enfield starting at 1 p.m. So things are, seems like this is really the first year that things are ramping back up in Enfield on July 1st in a few years. And that's it from District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. May 23rd, I presented a 85th birthday certificate to Mr. William Reeder, but unfortunately 6 days later he suddenly passed away. On May the 31st, I presented a 50th anniversary certificate for Ethel and Randall Beach of Gormanville. June the 6th, I presented a 80th birthday certificate for Charles Sampson and also presented them with a 50th, Charles and his wife Irene with a 50th anniversary certificate on that date. On June the 7th, I presented a 90th certificate for Mrs. Shirley Frigo Maitland. And on June the 17th, I presented an 80th birthday certificate for Phyllis Brown of Tennecape. I just like to remind people that the Knoll Fun Days will be taking place, I think it's July the 7th or 17th. I took my notes wrong. But anyway, I'll get some word out to you on that one. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. That concludes business from councillors. There being nothing left on the agenda, I would declare this meeting adjourned. So we'll